Good morning, guys. Welcome. Today is Tuesday. It's nice to see you guys. Hope you had a good holiday if you're in America. Went out and did a lot of freedom explosions, whatever it might be that you do to celebrate. Hope you're safe elsewhere with all the fun that continues on in 2020. Personally, I blame the movie Cats for this. So, alright, let's get started. Before we actually do that, I need to pop this out to the community. If you're new to me, I'm Marshall Berkshire, and I help codependents, survivors of narcissistic relationships, and love addiction rediscover happiness after that and build a life that they want to enjoy and build healthy relationships. Part of that is having community, and I have a very active, very warm, very safe community here on Facebook called Thriving Beyond Codependency. The link is above on Facebook, below on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, hit that subscribe button. Guys, I appreciate you being here. I have an interesting topic to talk about, one that keeps coming up fairly frequently with private clients, with students, with community members, people at large. That is the question of why does the bad or abuse that a person does negate the good? I come from a pretty strong point of view on this, so I'm going to warn you. I give you kind of like a little notice up front. Our first point there is that abuse is a zero tolerance thing. There is no fundamental excuse or reason to abuse another person. Period. Zero. Pain is not a reason to be abusive. Trauma is not a reason to be abusive. Okay? Speaking as someone that has had a history of being abusive, I had to go through a restructuring of how I thought about things, because people who abuse, often do have trauma in their past, but they also have a thinking model that says, "Hey, I'm in pain, and maybe you should be too." There's an entitlement that tends to come with that, especially with narcissistic individuals. There's an entitlement that, hey, if I'm in pain, you should be too. If I don't have my cookie, you don't get one either. That kind of attitude. People who have abusive behaviors because of trauma, their nervous systems are maxed out. They're overwhelmed, and they don't have tools in which to regulate that. Likely because, in my personal experience, because that's where my behaviors were rooted, came from shame. Not from entitlement, but from shame. Now, this is about understanding causation, but it is not about excusing behavior. Because regardless of what caused these things in my world, I'm still 100% accountable for the impact my behaviors and actions had on other people. Period. And when we get into the dynamic of, well, you did good things too, well, sure. But what happens with abuse is it toxifies the good things and makes the good things unsafe. It removes the value and the meaning from those good actions, because abuse destabilizes vulnerability and creates toxicity or a hostile environment. And then the person isn't safe to be them. And that's why the abusive bad behavior negates the good, because it poisons it. When we understand this fundamentally, then this is where we start to have really firm boundaries about this kind of behavior. Healthy people don't think in ways that entitle them, to give them a sense of entitlement to behave in ways that hurt others. When a healthy person has an abusive experience, like they abuse something, it's because they have maxed out their limits. They have exceeded their capacity. And then, and this is the key, they have remorse, they have empathy. They go back and they own it, and they correct it, and they don't do it again. That's the fundamental key. That's what I learned. I'm like, wow, I can change my behavior and be a healthier person. That's what I'm going to be. Because, and this is another component to this, sometimes people confuse their behaviors with their identity. So they're fused. Who I am is what I do. And so when people are called out on their behaviors, they have a huge emotional reaction to that because they feel like they're being personally attacked that way. And that impairs their ability to become accountable and realize that, oh, who I am and my behaviors are separate things. Who I am is A, my behaviors are demonstrating Z. Maybe I should refine my skills so that they demonstrate A, so that there's integrity between who I see myself as and who I demonstrate myself to be. So that's a being and a doing combination that we have to come to terms with. And so when brains are not thinking that way and they think that my behavior defines who I am, it's going to be really hard to change that. Because the brain looks at identity as a static object and it's like, well, that's what I am, so you're just going to have to live with it. That kind of thing. So healthy people think as, oh, my skills aren't functioning the way they ought to be because I care about how you feel, so I need to change my skills so it better supports how I feel about you and better supports our individual and collective safety. Because healthy people are interested in connection, not necessarily just benefit. Because all relationships have a bit of benefit to it, but not all relationships have a connection-centered driver or motivation, right? Typically with abusive, toxic people, they're going for a benefit. They're trying to get something. That's often called supply when we're dealing with narcissistic relationships. Now if we're dealing with maybe an avoidant or an anxious attachment relationship, the benefit is likely going to be around safety, and they're trying to control it because they're scared. So they need to work out their abandonment trauma to restore safety to the connection and to vulnerability. We'll get more into that as we get into avoidant personality and anxious attachment and stuff like that. Or anxious attachment, avoidant personalities. But fundamentally, guys, when it comes to abuse, if you have a zero tolerance policy, you're going to instantly start filtering people out of your world and start connecting with people that already understand this. Because it's my personal opinion that I'm not here to raise adults. If you're a grown-ass adult and you don't understand this, I'm not going to have an intimate relationship with you. I could be your coach, help you develop it, but I'm not going to be. We're not going to have a close emotional relationship until you can demonstrate that you've made that healthy, right? So I think it's important for us to have those kind of firm, fundamental standards so that our relationships are secure for us. We come first. Our well-being must matter to us fundamentally. That comes first. So if a person impacts my well-being in a negative way, I'm going to confront that. Now, if it's an abusive behavior, I'm pretty much going to be done. There's only one relationship type that I'm going to give that some space on, and that's my children, because if they're having those things, they need my support and they need understanding so they can work it out. Abusive people need accountability, not compassion. When they get down the road of accountability, they can have some compassion, but they need to be demonstrating that they really own how they're behaving, because their behavior is the problem, not their trauma. When they start working that out, then if that's something you feel safe to contribute, you can do that. But generally, I don't advise relationships, especially intimate relationships, emotional relationships with people who have abusive behaviors, because they are not thinking in a way that's going to protect your vulnerability, that's going to support you, that's going to empower you. You're going to either end up hurt more, or you're going to end up raising them, and then they're going to, that creates this weird imbalance in the relationship and stuff. So for me, I made my life very simple by choosing a zero tolerance policy to people who exhibit abusive behaviors and don't own them, and fix them. Kaya says it's so courageous of you to admit that you abuse behavior. Yes, thank you. I share it so I can put some context around where I'm coming from with this knowledge. I kind of have a reticence towards being praised for it or given some accolades for it, because it isn't something that's courageous. It is part of reality, and it needs to be understood, and it needs to be dealt with in a very direct manner. So thank you. Hi, Connie. Hi, Lori. So yes, guys, the bad is negated, or the good is negated by the bad because the bad poisons the good. So whatever good a person's doing becomes irrelevant if they're abusive, because the abuse destabilizes safety. It puts you in threats and harm's way. That's it. And we can have empathy and understand where they might be coming from, but that doesn't mean we stay in a relationship with them. That doesn't mean we help them out. People with these problems need professional help. You do not have that skill, nor should you be in that role anyway. You have been hurt and possibly even very harmed by them. You need to focus on your well-being, your safety first, and your well-being and your healing and moving on in your life. Let them figure it out with a professional. Okay? Because that's kind of the rub with codependency. We get in there and we try to rescue them. We try to help them. Guys, their pain is their journey, not our business. Fixing is not love. Enabling is not love. They need to deal with their shit with a professional. You need to deal with yours with a professional separately so you can move on into your own well-being and happiness. So that's my point of view on this. So yeah, we stay despite the bad. Yeah, we get into the fantasy. We buy into that the good really matters, and it doesn't matter. When you really, when this clicks in you, it's like, oh God, this person's toxic. Just because they do nice things doesn't mean they're healthy for your well-being. Like, really pretty flowers can be very, very toxic. It's just how it is. I call it the glowy thing syndrome. Oh, look, it's really pretty. Eat it, die. That kind of thing. It's important to acknowledge reality, and reality is when abuse shows up in a relationship, then good is negated because it's no longer a safe thing to have access to. And we have to pop our fantasy. We have to break out of that and connect with reality, going, wow, this hurts me. This hurts my well-being. Because, guys, your well-being matters. Period. That's it. The well-being, your well-being matters first. Their pain can be taken care of with a professional somewhere else. Your well-being comes first, period. When you make your well-being the fundamental boundary of how you relate to people, you're going to stop being in toxic relationships and you're going to discover healthy ones. You're going to discover real love, real connection, real companionship, real intimacy, real play, healthy support. When you start valuing your well-being first. That is essential. And it is worth valuing because you are innately valuable. If you really struggle with value, and you struggle to own yourself, to know yourself in that way, the happiness strategy is what you want to shoot at there, because we go really deep into value. Now, if you're really struggling with the fantasy, with the craving, with feeling crazy, not understanding what's real, if you're asking yourself the question, what is real? The Rapid Heal live membership is for you, live mentoring membership, because the From Addiction to Connection system in that membership is going to help you break free and connect back to sanity. So you can check out the links below on Facebook, or above on Facebook, below on YouTube for those programs. But fundamentally, guys, this is what it's about. It's getting sober and understanding that patterns of behavior define the healthiness of a relationship, not the good times. The good times do not mean anything unless that's the actual pattern of behavior in the relationship. If abuse is a pattern of behavior in the relationship, that's it. That's the ultimate definition, because it harms your well-being, it violates your well-being, it violates your sovereignty, and it makes things unsafe. You deserve to be with safe, loving people. You deserve to feel safe to be yourself, and you deserve to feel safe in love and in connection. So that's what we've got to focus on and build on and get honest with about ourselves. So let's see. Jackie says, took me a while to see this with loved ones, had to end it. Now, Gray Rock, yep. I'm proud of you, Jackie. You have done a badass job. Same with you, Kaya. Same with you, Connie. Same with you, Lori. I know all of you. I know your guys' journey. You guys are badasses. Proud of you. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Pretty simple, pretty straight to the point. Remember that you're worth knowing, loving, and keeping. And be safe out there. I will see you guys in our next training video. Okay? Okay. Bye-bye, guys.